Sophie Cunningham's season just ended in the most heartbreaking way possible, and what the Indiana Fever do next could determine whether Caitlin Clark's championship dreams survive. If you're a Fever fan, you need to hear what's happening behind closed doors right now, because the front office might be making moves that could destroy everything this team has built. But before we dive into that bombshell, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because we're about to reveal exclusive details about Sophie's injury that nobody else is talking about. The moment Bria Hartley crashed into Sophie Cunningham's knee on Sunday, you could see it in her face. This wasn't just pain. This was the look of someone who knew their season was over. And now we have confirmation that Sophie tore her MCL, ending what was shaping up to be her best season in the WNBA. But here's what the mainstream media isn't telling you. Sources close to the team are saying this injury might have saved Sophie's career in the most unexpected way. Let me explain what I mean. When Sophie went down clutching her knee, everyone watching feared the worst. An ACL tear would have meant 12 to 18 months of recovery. At 28 years old, that could have been career-ending. But an MCL tear? That's a completely different story. We're talking about a 3 to 4 month recovery timeline, which means Sophie could be back for training camp next season. The silver lining nobody's discussing is that this specific injury actually protects her ACL from future damage because of how the rehab process strengthens the surrounding muscles. But here's where things get controversial. The Indiana Fever's front office response to this injury has been absolutely shocking. Within hours of Sophie going down, they signed Shea Petty to a 7-day hardship contract and immediately released Kira Lambert, who had just made her WNBA debut. Think about that for a second. Lambert waited her entire career for that moment, played in the closing minutes of an overtime victory, and then got cut the next day because Sophie got hurt. That's the cold reality of professional sports that nobody wants to talk about. The timing of Sophie's injury couldn't be worse for Indiana. They've already lost Aari McDonald and Sydney Colson for the season, and Caitlin Clark, she's been dealing with her 4th muscle injury of the year. Let that sink in. The player who never missed a single game in 4 years at Iowa has now missed over 20 games this season. Sources inside the organization are whispering that these injuries might not be coincidental. The grueling WNBA schedule combined with inadequate recovery time is destroying these players' bodies. Here's something that will blow your mind. When Sophie Cunningham was defending Caitlin Clark earlier this season and got ejected with that flagrant 2 foul, her jersey sales increased by 300% in 48 hours. She went from being a role player to becoming one of the most recognizable faces in women's basketball. Her podcast launched, her social media following exploded, and suddenly she was making more money off the court than on it. And now, all of that momentum just came to a screeching halt. But the real drama is what's happening with the Fever's playoff chances. They've dropped from having a 99% chance of making the playoffs to just 87% in 2 weeks. They're currently sitting in 7th place, just 1.5 games ahead of falling out of the playoff picture entirely. Without Sophie Cunningham's clutch shooting and defensive intensity, this team is in serious trouble. What makes this even more devastating is how Sophie had transformed her game this season. She was averaging 12.4 points per game with a 76% true shooting percentage since mid-July. Those aren't just good numbers, those are elite efficiency numbers. She was shooting 45% from 3-point range during that stretch. For context, Steph Curry's career 3-point percentage is 43%. Sophie was literally shooting better than one of the greatest shooters in basketball history. The medical evaluation revealed something interesting about Sophie's injury mechanism. When Bria Hartley fell into her knee, the angle of impact actually prevented worse damage. If Hartley had hit Sophie's knee from the inside instead of the outside, we could have been looking at a complete ACL, MCL, and meniscus tear, which is known as the unhappy triad in sports medicine. Sophie got lucky in the unluckiest way possible. Now, let's talk about what nobody else is discussing: the expansion draft implications. With the Golden State Valkyries and potentially another team joining the league next season, every franchise has to protect certain players. Sophie Cunningham's injury might have just made the Fever's decision for them. They don't have to protect her because no expansion team is going to select a player coming off a major knee injury. This gives Indiana an extra protection slot for someone like Lexi Hull or Odyssey Sims. The financial implications are staggering. Sophie was playing on one of the most team-friendly contracts in the league, making less than $70,000 per year. She actually took a pay cut to join Indiana because she believed in what they were building with Caitlin Clark. Now the Fever have to decide whether to offer her a new contract while she's recovering from injury. And here's the kicker. Sophie's sister went viral calling out the WNBA referees for not protecting players, claiming the officials have it out for Sophie specifically. But the biggest story is what this means for Caitlin Clark's return. ESPN is now projecting Clark won't be back until August 26th at the earliest. That's 10 more games without their superstar point guard. The Fever have gone 6-6 without Clark during this latest absence, but they haven't faced any elite teams during that stretch. Their upcoming schedule includes matchups against the top 4 teams in the league. Without Sophie's scoring to complement Kelsey Mitchell, this team might not win another game until Clark returns. Here's what insiders are saying that should terrify Fever fans. The front office is reportedly considering not bringing Sophie back next season. They think she's causing too many headaches with her social media presence and outspoken personality. This is the same front office that's been criticized all season for poor roster management. If they let Sophie walk after she literally put her body on the line defending Caitlin Clark, it would be one of the biggest betrayals in WNBA history. The irony is that Sophie's injury happened during the Fever's greatest comeback in franchise history. They were down 21 points when she went down, and the team rallied to win in overtime. Kelsey Mitchell scored 38 points, 34 in the second half alone. It was like the team was playing for Sophie, channeling their anger and frustration into one of the most dominant performances of the season. But now they have to maintain that energy for the rest of the year without her. What's really concerning is the pattern of injuries hitting the Fever's guard rotation. First Caitlin with the quad injury, then the left groin, then the right groin, Ari McDonald with her season-ending injury, Sydney Colson out for the year, and now Sophie with the MCL tear. That's 5 guards who have suffered significant injuries this season. At some point, you have to wonder if there's something wrong with the training staff or the practice intensity. The medical experts are saying Sophie's recovery timeline could be anywhere from 8 to 16 weeks depending on the grade of the tear. If it's a grade 2 tear, she'll be back for training camp. But if it's a grade 3, which means a complete rupture, we might not see her until January. The Fever haven't released the specific grade of the injury, which has fans worried they're hiding bad news. Here's something that will make you angry. The play where Sophie got injured wasn't even called a foul initially. The refs let play continue while Sophie was writhing in pain on the baseline. It took the Fever bench screaming at the officials to get a stoppage. This is exactly what Sophie's sister was talking about when she called out the pathetic officiating. These referees are literally allowing players to get seriously injured because they refuse to call obvious fouls. The Sophie Cunningham situation has exposed a major problem in the WNBA. Players are getting injured at an alarming rate, and the league seems more concerned with expansion than player safety. The schedule is too condensed, the travel is brutal, and the medical support isn't adequate. Sophie's injury is just the latest casualty in a system that's breaking down. But here's the thing that nobody's talking about. Sophie Cunningham might have more value to the Fever injured than healthy. Her story, her fight, her connection with fans, all of that transcends basketball. She's become a symbol of toughness and loyalty in a league that desperately needs personalities. If the Fever let her go, they're not just losing a player, they're losing the heart and soul of their team. The reaction from Caitlin Clark tells you everything you need to know. Despite dealing with her own injury, Clark was courtside for Sunday's game and was visibly emotional when Sophie went down. These two have developed a bond that goes beyond basketball. Clark knows that Sophie took a flagrant 2 foul defending her. That's the kind of loyalty money can't buy. What happens next will define the Indiana Fever franchise. They can either stand by Sophie Cunningham, offer her a fair contract, and show that loyalty matters. Or they can treat her like a disposable asset and risk losing the locker room completely. Because make no mistake, every player is watching how the organization handles this situation. The truth is, Sophie Cunningham's injury might be the wake-up call the WNBA needed. Players are breaking down at an unprecedented rate. The physical toll of this condensed schedule is destroying careers. And unless something changes, we're going to see more stars suffer season-ending injuries. The league has to decide what matters more, expansion money or player safety. As for the Fever's playoff hopes, they're hanging by a thread. Without Sophie's energy and shooting, without Caitlin's playmaking, this team is a shadow of what it could be. They're 2.5 games away from missing the playoffs entirely. After all the hype, all the promise, this season could end in complete disaster. But here's my prediction, and you can quote me on this. Sophie Cunningham will be back, she'll be better than ever, and she'll help lead the Fever to a championship. Because players like Sophie don't stay down. They come back stronger, hungrier, and more determined. And when she returns, the rest of the WNBA better watch out. If you made it this far, you're a real one. Hit that like button and subscribe because we're going to be following Sophie's recovery every step of the way. And when she comes back, you'll be the first to know. The Fever season might be falling apart, but their future with Sophie and Caitlin healthy, that's a championship waiting to happen.